I'm Sonya Morton Firth, and you're tuned in to the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today, my guest is Neil Laughton, Special Forces veteran, international speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, and record-breaking adventurer. Neil has climbed Mount Everest a few times, jet skied the circumference of UK and Ireland, piloted the first flying car from London to Timbuktu, and holds multiple world records. It's safe to say that Neil lives a life less ordinary. Neil, thank you so much for being a guest on my show, and welcome to my little home in Richmond.
Great to be here, Sonia. Thank you for inviting me, and I must admit I can't think of anything nicer at the moment than being interviewed by you in the flesh as opposed to online.
Well, I'm going to take that as a compliment. Thank you, Neil. Neil, when I was doing my research on you, I didn't know where to start. You've done so many things. But before we talk about your adventures, because it wouldn't be an interview with Neil Laughton without talking about your adventures, I'd like to take you back to your military days. When did all that start? What got you into the military in the first place?
Well, it was actually when I was 12 that the opportunity and inspiration came for a career potentially in the military. And it was really fun because my dad was a commander of a ship called HMS Bulwark. It was an aircraft carrier, and it was on exercise in the Solent. And my school was in Sussex, and he sent a helicopter and got permission from the headmaster to allow me plus two of my best mates to be picked up by this helicopter in the grounds of the school, and we disappeared off, landed on the moving aircraft carrier in the Solent, and then spent 3 days with the Royal Navy. Now, it wasn't the Navy that inspired me, but actually the Royal Marine Commandos that were doing exercises in and out of the helicopters, going off on their missions ashore with blackened faces and their rifles strapped on their backs. And then when they came back 3 hours later, the aircraft were hovering over the deck, and all these guys were fast roping down back onto the ship. And I thought there and then, at age 12, that I wanted to be a Royal Marine Commando. It was a defining, inspirational moment that I realised, I was always going to be, I think, quite adventurous per se, but it was there and then that I decided that, looking at these heroes in my eyes, doing this incredible stuff, that I wanted to be a Royal Marine Commando. And, I first had to pass my exams, and then the officer selection course, and then somehow or another, both of those came to fruition, and I was selected 20 out of 5,000 applications to be a young Royal Marine officer, and that's where it started.
And then you got into the SAS as well.
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but I was trying to get a career in the Marines. Very sadly, my dad lost his battle with cancer when I was in my second year in the Marines. She took some compassionate leave, but it was, I don't know, losing your dad at 19, your kind of your mentor and hero and father was a big setback and a big shock. And I suppose, if I'm honest, looking back, it set me back, and I lost some confidence. Had to take some time out, and my head really wasn't in the right space. And I had that awful moment when your commanding officer invites you into his military office, shuts the door, and asks you to sit down and doesn't offer you a coffee. You know that you're in trouble, and I was dispatched prematurely from my aspirational career in the Marines.
Wow, so they had no compassion over the fact that you just lost your father?
They had, but it was just after the Falklands. Places were valuable, and they couldn't waste it on somebody who was going to be needing 6 months off to recover emotionally. And these were the old days. And actually, I'm sure we'll cover it. When you get a failure or a disappointment or an obstacle in the road, there's two ways you can go. You can either sink, or you can swim. And I always, being a positive sort of bloke, always go for the latter. It was a turning point in many ways, because I was going to be a career soldier, and actually I ended up starting my business career and applying for selection to the SAS, but the reserve forces element of it. There's two. There's one parent and regular regiment, and there's two reserve territorial regiments. And I did selection and spent 12 years serving in one of those. Yeah. So alongside my business career, so it was best of both worlds. And like I say, you know, one major problem and disappointment and failure led to a pivotal moment in my life.
Absolutely, wow. And how do you draw a parallel on what you took from the military into your business career? Because you were very successful in the business career. I believe you had a large construction company.
I think there's an awful lot of luck that goes with business success. So I had a good partner, Andrew Russell. He knew what he was doing in terms of construction, but I was always quite confident in front of clients, and we made a great team. And yes, we built a company from scratch to 40 million turnover in the space of generation, 15, 17 years, something like that. And it was pretty successful, employing lots of people and making some good money and all that. But to answer your question, yes, the military experiences gave me all sorts of things, from everyday confidence to being able to organise my life, discipline, being willing to take risks, which I think is quite important, and lots of other things that just subliminally you learn, you build up as part of the military agenda.
Do you think your passion for adventure came from those days, or do you think it was inherent in you before your military?
Yeah, no, I think I was always going to be quite adventurous. My first expedition was about a year after that helicopter on a ship with the Royal Marines. I persuaded my best friend at home to come on a 3-day canoeing expedition.
So you were like 13, 14?
13 years old, yeah.
Wow.
And we still don't know whether my dad was with binoculars in the bushes keeping an eye on me, but we camped for 2 nights. We paddled during the day, and we cooked our food on a billy stove in the evenings, and it was a great first adventure, age 13. And so I think it was kind of in my makeup, genes or whatever, to be quite adventurous, even before the military. And then of course in the military you're parachuting out of aircraft and abseiling out of helicopters and scaling cliffs. It enhances your enjoyment and confidence and abilities in the adventuring world.
But you say it in such a way, sort of almost blasé. I mean, it absolutely would terrify me to actually. I quite like jumping out of a plane, but to go abseiling down a cliff, that would probably scare the shit out of me. I mean, was there at no point that you felt fear?
No, on the contrary, you fear all the time. I mean, in the special forces, we would be jumping at 1 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, at 700 feet above the ground, in dodgy places, strapped with 100 pounds of kit, rifle, and all the rest of it. And you're pitching into the dark, have no clue, where or on what you're going to land heavily at 16 feet a second. No, you are terrified. But what you do is, with these experiences and with the training, you get good at coping with uncertainty, with the stress, the pressure, and the danger.
And how are you taught that? I mean, it must be a mindset that goes with that, because I'm sure the majority of the population couldn't do that, which is why we're not all in the SAS, because I bet there's a lot of people that watch
funnily enough,
films.
Funnily enough, I think it can be taught and it can be experienced. And I'm my job now is experiential training, is helping people through a process of learning in order to get some skills, but practice by doing. And I think for me personally, I was never brilliant at passing exams by learning pages in a book. Pretty hopeless. 3 times to get Maths O-level, for example. But ask me to fly a helicopter and pass the exams of a helicopter, I did that first time round. So there's something in experiential training that I think is really valuable. I think mindset is really important, but it's also the tools. It's the behaviours of, say, special forces mentality. how that could be, and I'm looking at it right now as to how you can distill the mindset, the values, the characteristics, the tools, the behaviours of Royal Marines and Special Forces personnel in a short space of time and translate that and gift that to business people and teams.
How can you? I mean, are there some...
I'm working on it now. I'll let you know when we've created a programme, but that's something I'm working on right now.
I mean, certainly in terms of the interviews I've had with veterans and other Special Forces veterans, there seems to be a strong resilience, I would say, running through, and also a calmness and determination, a very steady. I can't describe it. It's like a power. Maybe that's how I'd describe it, as though nothing can affect you.
I think going through a military training process is very cathartic in terms of personally developing the individual. And whilst you're doing that, you're sharing that experience with other like-minded souls, and you create that bond. And it's what's called extreme teamwork. And yes, you're pushed to sometimes your limits and pushed beyond your comfort zone. And therein lies, I think, the difference between like doing an MBA and doing Royal Marine training is that you're probably not pushed that much, certainly not physically, but in the military you are pushed beyond which at the point in time you think you can go. And I've seen, especially on my 6 expeditions to Everest, for example, that people can go way beyond where they think they can. And that's because we humans are incredible species.
Let's talk about that. Your trips to Everest, and it's not just once you've been to Everest. As you say, it was, what, 6 times?
Yeah, no, I've organised and led 6 expeditions to Everest, some climbing ones, and taking a guy in a wheelchair, and with Bear Grylls we went to get the highest motorised parachute flight.
Didn't you also strip naked, or was that something I read that was...
No, that's Bear. He likes to strip naked all the time. So yeah, I've got a...
Must get him on the show, really.
Censored photograph of him at 21,000 feet below the summit, obviously, but with ice axe aloft and not much else. So
what keeps luring you back to the mountain?
Well, I find peace in the mountains. So that's my version of mindfulness, being at one, at peace with myself and people I'm with. And I'm not sure if you've been to the Himalayas, but
I haven't.
But all the highest mountains in the range are utterly stunning and beautiful. The benefit of the Himalayas and Nepal in particular, you have wonderful Sherpa communities, and they're just a beautiful, beautiful race. They're there to help you with your challenge, whatever that might be. And a couple of years ago, I took a team to set the world record for the highest black tie dinner party.
Yes, I saw that.
And yeah, we just couldn't have done it without the help of our Sherpa team, and they were amazing and fabulous, fabulous experiences. So you get the beauty and serenity of the mountains, and you're sharing time and space with wonderful people.
You must have had some near-death experiences up there.
Oh, plenty.
Is there any that you can sort of really recall and talk me through?
Well, I suppose the worst one was in '96 when I went to try and first climb the mountain, and just terrible timing. I was trying to summit the mountain when the worst storm in 100 years hit the region, and it was a number of books and films have been shown about this particular 48-hour period. Suffice to say, 8 people lost their lives very sadly in that time, and I was there amongst them.
So you were in the same part of the expedition?
I was in the tent next to John Krakauer, who wrote the book Into Thin Air, for example. So yeah, and I was there. I witnessed it. It was a very awful experience, and obviously we didn't succeed on that occasion, and spent 2 days and nights trying to survive in that storm.
What goes through your mind when you're pretty much in the face of death? Is there anything that...
Well, I think, the trick, I think, is not to panic. Is to continue to make good decisions and just focus on what you need to do to help and improve your situation and that of others. And that's what I did. Got busy and helped the rescue effort, and that's as much as you can do. And you know, if you're religious, I suppose you do a quick side prayer to the Almighty to keep an eye on you.
And did you ever reflect on those times on your own mortality, or think about what the F am I doing here?
Well, I think afterwards you do. At the time, you in order to survive, you just got to keep busy and, like I say, keep making good decisions and hopefully get away with it. And I've got away with it quite a few times.
Yeah.
Including when you had Derry on the show.
Yes.
He was on my trip in 2015 when we were caught in the 7.8 magnitude earthquake.
And you were at the North Pole.
21,000 feet.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so what's your top one near-death? I've got to really, because.
Well, there's been a few, but I suppose one of them would be we were practicing for the parachute motorised descent in Everest back in 2007. I did a paramotor flight, it's a parachute with an engine on your back, propeller. We were in the Alps in France, and I took off. I was about 100 foot up. And unfortunately, some rotor, some bad wind came over some trees and a house, and I could sense that there was something not quite right with my equipment and parachute, and the damn thing collapsed, and I plummeted like a stone about 100 feet down, and would have been killed outright had I hit the ground. But just as luck would have it, I was on over the top of a French farmhouse, and sloping slate roof.
Oh my!
Saved me, and I bounced off the roof down onto the ground. So it was like a double whammy. But in so doing, I fell kind of 75 feet onto the house and then into the garden. Much to the surprise and shock of the French farm family that were having their breakfast.
I bet they nearly choked to death. They
were a bit surprised.
I mean, you must have been described as James Bond before.
I doubt it.
Never? I mean, it just springs to mind. I can see either that or the guy that delivered the milk tray chocolates that went through all of these different things to do. Does death frighten you?
No, not really. I mean, luckily I've had 50 plus years on the planet, really fulfilling all the aspirational dreams and things that I want to do, and there's still more to do. But you've got to live your life to the full, and I'm a great advocate of leading an adventurous life, clearly, but because I think it's great for the soul and body, mind, body and soul. But I do think that it's good to lead an adventurous life. If I were to get a horrible disease tomorrow, God forbid, or stroke, or permanently got run over by a bus and never to be seen again, I can honestly say I'd have no regrets.
I mean, on that note, in the times that we're living now, there are a lot of people that are actually living sort of, through fear, sort of locked up in their homes, certainly a long way from an adventurous life. Does the pandemic scare you in that respect?
In itself, not really. But of course, one has a duty to not only to my family and friends, but also people I meet in the street. And you've got to take precautions for the obvious reasons of public health. So, look, I'm doing everything I can. I came in here with my mask on, having washed my hands. You do what you can for the good of yourself, your close friends and associates, and obviously the wider public. But am I scared of catching the virus? Not really. It will be what it be's.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, and I'm not scared of it, and I am obviously scared of people I love catching it, etc. But for my own safety, I'm not fearful of myself getting ill or catching it, because I just feel that I'm healthy and we'll get through it.
Sure.
But what I am more fearful of is how it's affecting people's mental health, and I just believe that we're not people to live on our own and lock the doors and stay shut away in our homes. That frightens me more than anything else, than getting ill. I'd rather be able to live my life and go outside and speak to people and carry on that.
Yeah, and I would encourage people to get outside and exercise. You can
Yes.
you can really do that without catching this virus if you take precautions. So people shouldn't, unless you're in a government lockdown, you should not hide in your house thinking that you're protected from the virus. Be safe, but get out and get exercise and clear your mind and think about a more positive future. So I always encourage people to be active and there's always hope. There's absolutely always hope for a better future.
Would you consider yourself quite an optimistic person, Neil?
100%. Definitely, yeah.
Considering the amount of risks that you've taken in your life, I guess you have to have an optimistic, or you wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. You're either a glass half full or a glass half empty. I've always been glass half full or brimming, and but that's the way I get through life. That's the way I enjoy life. That's the way sometimes I succeed in the crazy missions that I put on the table.
So how do you come up with these crazy missions? Because some of them are pretty crazy, or there was a word that I was reading that you use, a sublime. And let's talk about them. So we, Everest, I wouldn't say that's normal, but you consider, climbing Mount Everest as something that a lot of people may deem as wanting to do. But flying in, what was it, the first flying car from London to Timbuktu, or sailing in a bathtub on the Solent, strikes me as slightly crazy.
I thought you were going to talk about my golf at the North Pole.
Well, the golf at
cricket
North
at the
Pole.
South Pole. But no, the bathtub was actually, not many people know this. This is an exclusive. It started off with a friend of mine, John Bezic. We had played cricket at the South Pole. We were always thinking up interesting ideas. And John's an architect, and he thought, wouldn't it be great, and it was his idea, I have to admit it, to attempt to cross the Solent in a bath made of ice.
Oh, so the bath was actually made of ice.
Correct. Yeah. So we attempted to paddle across the Solent in a bath made of ice. Unfortunately, it failed miserably. It hadn't been in the freezer long enough and disintegrated not far offshore. But being a good military person, I had a plan B. And the plan B was a standard bath rigged with some ship's fenders, and to save blushes, whilst the ITN and TV crews were shooting footage of us swimming around with ice around us in the sea, we jumped into the plan B, the standard bath, and paddled across to the Isle of Wight. 4.5 hours.
Just as well you had a plan B. What's your view on plan B? I'd say, let's take a business as an example, because there are those that say, forget plan B, you should be just aiming at one plan, burn your bridges, as the old Napoleon Hill book was all about, you burn the bridges, so there's no way you can go back, you just go forward. Plan B.
Well, I think there's merit in both options, and I think probably combination of the two is a sensible compromise. Yes, for sure, you've got to be highly focused and determined and apply your best effort at plan A, but I don't think there's any harm in having a plan B. Especially if you want to get across the Solent in a bath made of ice, for sure.
So how do you come up with these adventures? I mean, okay, that was what your friend that had come up with the bathtub idea. But the majority, is it something that you just sort of dream about, wake up and...
It comes with a spark of an idea, and then you develop that idea, and then you put an executive plan together for the idea, and then you find somebody who's going to pay for it, and then you go and do it. And it's as simple as that. So, for example, you mentioned the flying car. This was a project that was actually the dream of a great friend of mine, Giles Cardozo. He always wanted to fly the world's first road legal flying car.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Exactly.
Obviously, he loved that movie.
So being a pilot and being an adventurer, I immediately got involved. I knew him as a friend. We were on an expedition, actually one of the expeditions on Everest in 2007. And he said to me, across the cup of tea in the tent, I think I can now design and build the world's first road legal flying car. And I took a sip of tea and asked Gilo how much to make the prototype. And he gave me an exorbitant figure of something like £150,000. I didn't have that in the bank, clearly. But I found myself reaching across, shaking by the hand and saying, I'm your first customer.
And so how did you raise the money?
I put an executive pitch document together off the back of what was going to be the world's first flying car test run voyage journey. And I chose London to Timbuktu in the middle of the Sahara Desert as that maiden flight and voyage. Put a team together, found some sponsors and partners, commercial partners, and we made it happen. And it was a 10,000 kilometre journey in the world's first road legal flying car.
And actually, so it was flying.
Yeah.
Did it come down, other than at the end?
It nearly crashed a few times with me in it. There was one famous occasion where we were trying to get across the Straits of Gibraltar from southern Spain to North Africa on midway through this journey. And I had two previous attempts to get across, and both had failed for various technical reasons. And I jumped into the pilot's seat of the flying car. And again, another one of my near-death scenarios. I took off. I was about 80 foot up above the waves heading towards North Africa. And there was a major technical problem with the canopy. And it was about to stall, much like the horrific incident of the parachute when it collapsed and I fell 100 feet. The same thing was about to happen, but with 750 kilos of metal strapped to me. And it was a pretty harrowing moment. There was a camera team in a helicopter, filming everything, and what they saw in the subsequent documentary on Channel 4 saw the fear in my eyes, literally, as I realised that I was about to die. I made the decision to get out of the car, the aircraft, and jump 80 foot down into the sea, and obviously that would have been probably the end of me and the end of the expedition. But a kind of a miracle happened, an aeronautical miracle happened. The car naturally turned on its own, 180 degrees, and headed back towards the beach, and kind of stabilised. And then I made a subsequent decision to get back into the controls and make an emergency landing, and I got away with it. And then the third attempt, it was successful. We fixed all the problems, and then ended up landing illegally at a heliport in North Africa. Much to my joy, relief, and enthusiasm, was jumping around and got promptly arrested by the Spanish North African police.
I don't know where to start on that one. I feel like, do you think people say that cats have 9 lives. Do you believe in fate, or God, or religion?
Yes and no. There's a higher being out there somewhere. What it is, how you define it, I haven't got the answers. But what I do believe in is the ability of humans to make good decisions, to survive, and to have that kind of resilience to get through difficult moments.
Do you think, is there something in you that you're searching for, Neil?
No, I know where you're heading with this delicate question. No, I think it's not too difficult. I'm searching for a life that is less boring, and that I have no regrets if I reach 80. I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd started this business. I wish I'd climbed Everest. No, I don't want to be in that situation. So I'm making plans and executing on those plans to ensure that isn't a scenario that I'm faced if I reach 80.
Are you happy just being? And I ask this question because I find it very difficult just being. And I'm one of life's doers, and people say, I do, I go. And I find it quite difficult to relax.
Yeah.
And I've had spiritual people, and I'm trying to practice more meditation, spirituality, who've said you just need to be and be happy with that. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that's important. Recuperate the mind and body. But I do it in interesting, stranger ways. So like for me, spending an hour on a paddleboard, it gives you the ability to be at one and be at peace. When I'm out on my mountain bike on my own, not when I'm with others riding, chatting, but when I'm out on my own, training on a mountain bike, it provides the most wonderful moment to get into your head whilst you're looking, for brambles and obstacles on the path. Just that ability to be at one with yourself, and some of my best ideas come when I'm riding my bike on my own.
You've lived such a varied and exciting life. What life lessons have you got? If you were talking to your younger self, or maybe your son or your daughter, what are your life lessons?
Well, there's loads, isn't there? But I try and articulate my three pillars, which are discovery, teamwork, and adventure. And discovery, what I mean by that is being curious, mostly. It's about experiencing new stuff, being brave enough to put yourself, in different places, go traveling, learn other cultures, maybe even a language. But fundamentally, be curious about you and the world that you occupy. Teamwork's about doing things with other people, and if you can pick, I would try and pick good people to go on expeditions with, adventures with, holidays with. Obviously, you try and pick good people to marry and so forth. That's a benefit. But you won't find me doing too many solo stuff. I like to collaborate. I like to work with people. I like to join forces with other people with different talents to me, and therein I think lies that strength. And then adventure, I think we talked about it quite a lot already. Just having that mindset of being positive, looking to the future rather than the past, glass half full rather than half empty, being positive, and then just enjoying whatever it is that you do. It might be knitting, extreme knitting. But find your passion and then pursue it adventurously, which comes with taking a risk. It takes the ability to plan and execute on something exciting.
How has your 2020 been? You described it as a washout, and I think there's people that are looking at this year going, God, I just wish it was over. I can't believe Halloween's coming up. We've only got a couple more months of the year.
Yeah.
Was it a washout for you?
It's been pretty bad. Yeah, I won't lie. It's not been great. The first week of lockdown, I was working on a Cunard cruise ship actually, doing some speaking engagements. So it started off pretty good.
I wish you'd stayed on that. I'm sure.
Yeah. So I was in the sort of Caribbean, going through the Panama Canal and enjoying life quite a lot. And during the first week of lockdown, I was coming across the Atlantic. Sailed over the Titanic. So it could have been worse from that point. But obviously with the shutdown was difficult. My thing is experiential training, and so a bit like yourself with a live interview here as opposed to virtual. My business is all about teams and leadership and bringing people together to collaborate and to work more effectively together. And so it has been difficult, I won't lie. But we're finding ways around. We've got a COVID-safe venue for small groups, doing business meetings and training programs. During the warmer months, we were outside as opposed to in, which was great. And we're doing all we can to mitigate what the restrictions are and work around them.
I love that. I love the way you say that rather than, I'm hearing so many people use the word pivot, which I'm beginning to realise is one of my worst words in the English dictionary at the moment. And I don't really know why, but to me it suggests that we're losing part of ourselves because of something that's put themselves in the way, rather than doing what you're saying, which is don't lose sight of who you are, but just change accordingly or be flexible to the conditions. And I think so many of us seem to be putting everything behind a screen. Because that is the safe way, and not going out of our houses and doing everything, behind a computer. And I'm not knocking technology, and technology is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But I also think human connection is.
Look, the human connection is really important, and yes, I admit that I haven't pivoted my business. I've made adjustments, creating new programs that reflect the current situation. But I haven't, being an experiential trainer, you can't, deliver your service between computer screens. But I've also seen some great examples of where this new way of working has been really beneficial. So, for example, I'm wearing one of my charity's shirts today, the Scientific Exploration Society. Every year, it's basically a charity that's all about discovery, research, and conservation in remote parts of the world, helping communities. And we have a great program encouraging young scientists to get out and do some great projects and work. Every year we have an awards ceremony, an SES Explorer Awards, and we dish out £50,000 of grants, other people's money, gifted to the charity, which we then hand out to the best young talent doing these scientific projects.
Wow, and the grants are given to these people so they can go on and have further education and do further exploration.
Yeah, so we had a young man on screen last night. I was doing hosting a webinar. It was a young 27-year-old scientist doing a PhD, and it was all about rangers without borders. So, protecting indirectly the snow leopard and in Kazakhstan and places like that, and providing funding to these amazing people, young scientists. But anyway, the point is, every year we have this award ceremony, dish out £50,000 to 10 or so individuals, and we have about 500 people in the room. This year we had to do it virtually. We hosted an online webinar, and it reached 10,000 people.
Wow.
Or more. Yeah. So there are pros to the current situation for different organisations and people, and you've just got to find your place and ways in which to exploit or take advantage, as well as work around the difficulties of the current situation.
I love your charity, the Scientific Exploration Society. I think that's one thing I think that has helped the planet, actually, because people have lessened their carbon footprint and all the rest of it, and I think we have become more aware of our environment and nature and what we are doing to the planet, and if anything, I think this has sort of slowed it down and helped in that respect.
Absolutely, and it's a great human trait, when disasters strike, when you can concentrate on helping others, you indirectly help yourself.
I think that's what I thought was phenomenal when we first went into this lockdown. People were stepping up with acts of kindness. Everyone was sort of together in this. I think what I've seen what I think has happened more recently is there's more friction and divisions, unfortunately, that have started showing their ugly faces, and sadly,
particularly in America.
Particularly in America, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we all go through our difficult times in history.
I mean, particularly in America, but I'm from the north of England, Newcastle, and I've got to say, having heard some of the people up north and what they think about these restrictions, there is becoming a bit of a north-south divide again. And I'm hoping that isn't going to become too entrenched.
No, I hope not. Look, I think where we Southerners love the Northerners. In fact, I've got a holiday property in the north near Newcastle.
Have you?
And I love going there. It's brilliant.
I
love the people.
Holiday property in Newcastle.
I know, yeah.
Cold.
Bizarre, isn't it?
The coastline's beautiful.
There's no such thing. And in fact, we should all stick together globally as much as we can. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world if we didn't fight each other all the time and kill each other?
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. Neil, what is next for you? That's what I want to know. I mean, you have done so many adventures. Have you got another one?
The two big ones next year are both very different, actually. One is to the Amazon River, 3 tributaries of the Amazon River in a remote part of Peru. and we're going to take some paddle boards and a jet board and have some fun, getting involved with the local indigenous communities in remote parts of the Amazon jungle and river. So that'll be in May next year, and then the big adventure challenge, which will be probably a Guinness. Well, it will be a Guinness World Record if we succeed.
Wait, is this an exclusive? Does anyone know?
Nobody knows.
Okay.
This is
great.
an attempt to for the highest bike ride. So I've identified a suitable mountain at 7,250 meters in the Himalayas, and with some friends, I'm going to attempt to cycle from the summit back down to base camp, which will involve the snow and ice, studded tyres, and probably fairly fast ride down the mountain.
Wow.
And that'll be in September, October next year.
And
so you're welcome to come on either of those.
Well, the Amazon sounds maybe slightly more my thing.
And then the inspiration program, we're taking some people to South Africa in April and September. So plenty of opportunities to get involved with my world.
Absolutely. I like the sounds of that, the inspirational. I think that's great. And if there's any links, we'll put those on the show notes as well. Where can people find out about you, Neil?
Oh goodness, if you look hard enough, you'll find I'm everywhere on social
I googled
media.
you, it's very easy.
Yeah, so that people can find me if they want to find me. I'll leave it to them. But obviously very happy to connect with anybody who has struck a chord and wants to, I can help in any way go from more of an ordinary life to an extraordinary life.
Well, you certainly have led an extraordinary life. And I unfortunately have come to my last question because I feel like I could ask more questions and find out more. I could talk for ages. My last question, Neil, is if you were to write a message in a bottle for future generations to find, what would that message be?
Oh wow! I'm not sure I'm qualified to write a cogent message, but I would probably steal the words of a famous poet and Roman centurion by the name of Quintus Ennius, who apparently 2,000 plus years ago wrote on a tablet these words, and I try and follow them, and I do encourage others to do the same. And they are, "Fortune favours the brave."
I love it. Neil, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Pleasure, Sonya.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox.